What's up, bros, and welcome to another Brograph tutorial. I'm Dave Koss, and I have been playing with a drone, which that's not what we're going to talk about today, but I just wanted to give you a heads up. There might be a little Brograph experiment coming up having to do with 3D and drones, so that's fun. I'll just set this over here for a minute. Okay, good. All right, so today I wanted to talk about my favorite tools in Cinema 4D. A lot of people have asked me about that, about what I use, and I also wanted to give you a little tip about how to arrange your favorite tools in Cinema 4D if you've never done that before. So let's take a look. You can see in Cinema 4D there's a lot of extra room up here by default in this little area, which is nice. And so there's a couple different ways you can put custom tools up here. One of the ways is if you're using the search tool, which is Shift-C, you can type in anything you want, like let's say Extrude. And you can actually just drag it up like that, which is really cool. The other way that you could do it is you go to Customization and you go to Customize Palette, you will get this giant list, and it's basically just about every command that you could ever think of in Cinema 4D. It's like literally everything. And not only can you change the shortcut that's used for them, but you can actually just take them and drag them up to the top. The other thing that's cool is you could do separators, like little mini separators in between icons. You could do bigger group separators, and then there's this fill space that you can put in here too. So you really have a lot of options as far as customization, but what I wanted to show you today is how you can save all of that as well. So let's say that you've got these two random things up here, and these are the tools you like. You then go to your customization, and you can say Save Layout As. And then you can just save that somewhere. And I recommend saving it somewhere where you can get to it often. Like if you have Dropbox, that's a really good place to put it because you can get to it at all times. If you're working on location somewhere, or if you're on another computer, or you load a new version of Cinema up and you want to bring that same layout in, it's really easy to go back to your default. The other thing about that is once you have it set up, the other thing you want to do is go back to customization and tell it to save as your startup layout. That way, it not only saves that as your custom layout, but it's there every time you open Cinema. So I'm going to go ahead and load mine up now, and since I've been getting questions about what my favorite tools are, I'll go ahead and show you that. So if I go to my load layout under customization, I'll show you here, I can go to my Dropbox where I happen to have mine saved. And I can load up Dave. Put it on the wrong screen because I guess I saved it on the wrong screen on a different computer. Oh well. All right, so here are all of my favorite tools, and I'm going to show you the different uses of these and why I kind of keep them up here as defaults. All right, number one is audio. I work a lot with audio, and it's a lot of stuff that's really precise and a lot of stuff that I kind of have to go back over and over and over and check stuff and make sure it's working. Well, the thing about that is it gets really annoying sometimes because you figure out, okay, well, that matches. And they used to have, I think by default, a little button down here that was an audio button, and they got rid of it. But it's up here in Animate, Play Sound, and I just got tired of going to find that every time. So this turns off your audio and turns it back on really fast if you're doing a lot of stuff that you need that for. The next thing on here is invert. So I'm going to go through, I'm just going to make a box, I guess, a cube. And I'm going to segment it, I don't know, 4 like that. All right. So we got our segmented box, and I'm going to hit C and just turn that into regular polys so we can just move it around and do whatever we want with it. So a lot of times what will be going on is I'm working on a fairly complex model, and I've got certain things selected. And especially if I'm working with something like a texture where I'm putting textures in certain places. So let's say I've got like a red here, and I want to put it here. And then I've got like another selection here. I've got a blue. I want to put it here. Except I added it to all of that. There we go. Blue. All right, so now I've got colors in certain places. And so let's say, for example, that I have these two selected sections here. And I've tried to shift select to see if I can do two selections. Interesting. There we go. Now let's say that I wanted the rest of this to be something else, a different color. Let's say I'm going to make it yellow. Now, I could just go in and select every one of these that isn't those two colors, or I could invert it, and that's what this invert tool does. I click that, it does the inverted selection, and then I can drag my other color on, and there we go. There's my colors. So that's invert. Then the next tool that we have is the set selection tool. And the set selection tool will actually create these little tags here for you automatically. So I'm going to remove everything to start out and show you how this works. If I have a colored texture, let's say, and I put it on a selection like I did with that yellow earlier, boom, it automatically creates a selection tag for me, which is nice. But sometimes I don't want to do it that way. I don't want to drag a texture onto it. So if I have that selected and I just want to create the selection by itself, I can use set selection and that creates it. I can give it a name, or I could just leave it as is if I want. Now if I put, let's say, red on this cube, the whole thing's red, and then I decide, well, I only want it on that selection. Then I click on my tag for that material and I drag the selection down to where it says selection under material, and it applies it. Now here's one thing to keep in mind. If you do a set selection and then you select more faces, you want to be really careful if you're doing another set selection, and here's why. If I got the cube set and I've got that selection set, and let's say that I select these two and I want to make it another selection. Well, if I hit that, it doesn't make a new tag. It actually added to that existing tag because it was selected, and that's something to keep in mind. So I'm going to undo that and show you, like, even if I just selected, a couple by themselves, if that's selected and I hit set selection, it's going to change that selection. So what you got to do is, if you want to select something new, make sure that that tag is not highlighted. Do that. I'm going to hit set selection. And there we go, I got a new set selection. One more tip while I'm working on this is about changing the names of selection tags. This is just called polygon selection by default, and they're all going to be called that with like a 0.1 or 0.2 at the end. And it's really good to name all of your stuff, especially these tags, because if you do like 100 of these, it's going to be really hard to go back and figure out, well, what was that selection and what was this selection for? The other thing about that is if you change the name later, then you're going to be in trouble because stuff is going to start not working anymore. For example, if I click on this first tag and I change the name to Dave, what happened? My red's gone. And that is because this texture is still looking for the selection called polygon selection. So you have to do it again and put it back to where it was. So I would recommend naming them from the beginning. All right, the next thing in here is knife. I use knife for a lot of different things, and that's why I've got that up there. One of the ways that I like to use this is to just create points. If I need a point somewhere, like I just want to change this one part of this box, I'm just going to do a restrict to selection. So like if I wanted to put a point right here on this, then I would use my knife and I would cut like that. I guess I have to have it in. Oh, I guess it did work. I just didn't see it. All right, there we go. So I got my points. So now I got a new point. The other thing knife is good for is if you want to do loop or plane. This is kind of nice because you can do a whole bunch of these at once. Path as well. And on loop, is it loop or is it plane? On plane, this is actually kind of cool. On plane, you can do multiples at the same time. Like if you want to do 5 or 6, you can go like this. You can change the spacing. So that's really cool. It's just a real versatile tool that I use all the time, so that's why that is in there. Next up is subdivision. Sometimes you got to subdivide. Let me show you why. Let's start with a new cube. This is too messy. Let me start with a basic cube that only has one segment on each side. And I'm going to turn that into regular geometry. And I'm going to make it... Hello, what am I looking for here? I'm going to... Yeah, I'm going to make it kind of thin, like this. Smaller rectangle. Center that up here. I'm going to put a little bend deformer as a child of the cube. I'm going to fit to parent. And I'm going to turn up the strength on the bend. Now, look what's happening. Oh no. It's not actually bending the way I want because there's only a segment here and a segment here. So there isn't a way for that to bend in the middle. So I'm just going to subdivide. Let's get in there. Let's get in there. Let's get in there. There we go. That's a nice subdivide. Nice smooth edge because I subdivided it. Perfect. So subdivide, that's another one I like. I'll take off the bend here. All right. The next one is scroll to first active. Let me show you why this is important. And you know what? I'm going to leave the bend on because I'm going to show you how this can get like super messy. And I don't know, let me throw a polygon in here. I don't know. I'm just throwing stuff in here to throw it in there. Okay. So I'm going to null that as well. Option G. Remember Option G because that puts everything selected in a null, which is something I use just constantly. And you will too, trust me. I'm going to call this stuff. And here is stuff. All right. So I have all this stuff under here. And let's say I'm duplicating all this stuff, and I got 1 million of these now, and there's stuff all over the place, and I'm modeling some abstract piece or something. All right, now I got all this junk here, right? And I click on this polygon right here, and I'm like, oh, where is that in my object viewer? I don't know where that is. Let me start looking. And then I'm like, oh, it's under stuff. And then I got to go to stuff. And then let's say like all this stuff is still folded. And I got to dig down and I got to find it. All right, well, there's an easier way to do it. If you click on that object and you're working with it and you want to find it over here, you just hit scroll to first active. And there it is. And that is super, super, super helpful, especially when you have like literally thousands of things, all the things in here. So scroll to first active. The other thing is fold and unfold all. That's what these two are, the plus and the minus. A lot of times you'll start working with stuff and it really starts to become a mess. You got stuff everywhere. You just want to make it nice and clean. You just hit fold. That's all you do. Fold all. And then sometimes you want to unfold everything because you want to see everything at once. You can hit that unfold button, which is nice. The other thing, if you're an After Effects person, that I like to do is I've assigned a shortcut, and I don't know if that comes in with your palette. I guess it doesn't. So I'm going to go up to Window and Customization. And I'm going to go back to Customize Palettes like earlier, and I'm going to look for Fold All. And there's a bunch of them, but I think it's this one, I hope. Yeah, Object Manager right there. That's what it is. All right, so when I click on that and I click on Shortcut, I'm going to hit Command tilde. And so what that does is just like After Effects, when you hit that, it will fold. So I'm going to assign, and I'm going to close that. So then when I'm up here on my object window, I can hit Command tilde just like in After Effects if you're used to that, and it folds everything up nice and neat. It's just something I really like to have around just to not get lost in all of this mess when I'm doing complicated projects. So fold, the next thing we have here is select children. And let me show you why this is important. I work a lot with layers, and sometimes there are a bunch of layers, and sometimes I want to reassign stuff if I modify it a little bit. For example, if I'm working on this little area of stuff and I give it a layer, I'm going to add to new layer. I'm going to call this stuff. It's my stuff layer, right? And I just click and brush down so all of these are on this layer. Now if I want to work just on this layer and I'm doing something like soloing and I want to add a box or cube, look what happens. It doesn't show up. It's because it's not in there. And let's say I modify it even more and I'm working on some other pieces of this and I'm not using my layer solo or anything for a long time. I'm just working on this project and I've got a bunch of stuff here and I put it underneath that same null object, and then I work on another area and I come over here and I'm duplicating more stuff. Later on in the project, I'm going to come back and solo again and I'm going to realize, oh wait, I didn't assign all of that stuff to this, so now only this part is showing up. The reason that I like having this select children mainly is so I could quickly, without unfolding everything, because imagine, I'll just fold these and show you. Imagine all this is folded in here, and now it's like super messy, right? So all of these are folded back up, and all of a sudden I'm trying to find what stuff in this huge hierarchy is not assigned to the right layer. It's going to take me forever to do that, especially if I got a lot of stuff going on. So I click on the one top layer and I say select children. They're all selected. Then I can just assign that layer. I can either right click on my stuff and I can say add to stuff like that, and they're all in there, or I could use the next one, which is add to new layer. I'll do it on this other one. Let's say we have stuff 2 over here and we want to select everything underneath without having to unfold it all. Just click that button and then I'm going to assign that to a new layer. There it is. I'm going to call that stuff 2. Now everything under there is in that layer. It's just a real easy way to assign that stuff and get around without a lot of hassle. Saves you a lot of time. The next one is Axis Center. So I'm going to delete some of this junk that we don't need right now, and mix down this cube and subdivide it out a little bit. So we're working with a cube, and let's say we were modeling something. We decided to delete a bunch of stuff. And we're working on our model, and we're modifying it, and I'm just going to select some random pieces. Look at our beautiful model we're working on here. All right, well, where is the center of this now? Well, the center of it is over here. Well, that's not really where I want the center, especially if I do something like this. If I really modify it and I delete, let's see, take my points, and I'm going to delete a whole bunch more here. Actually, let's do faces. I'm going to select it. All right. Now it's really off from where it was before. And when I go back to my regular tools, you see the center is right here where it originally was. It's not in the center of all this mess now. So I will go into point mode. You can see all your points here. The one thing that you can do is do an optimize. That's your first step if you got a lot of points. That's just another random tip. I'll throw it in there. That is under commands, mesh commands, optimize. I probably have to have them selected. Optimize. There we go. Now you can see that the center of axis is in the middle of these points, but if you're back in your regular modeling mode, the axis is not in the center of everything anymore. So what this tool does here, Axis Center, there's a little tick box right here. It says Point Center, and you click that and you hit Execute, and it will put the center of your object in the center of where all the points are. The next one up is the Center Parent To command, and this I use an awful lot. So let's say that we got a bunch of objects here, and they all make up kind of one deal we're working on. And I take all of those and I hit that Option G, and I've got them in a null, and here's my project. All right. The center is over here because that's the center of everything that I had selected, like underneath at the time when I created the null. What I want to do though, let's say in this case, let's say that this cube right here is the center of, you know, I don't know, like an arm or something like that, and that needs to be the pivot point. Well, this is buried all the way underneath, and you could go back here and change to axis mode and move it manually, but the easiest way to do that is to tell all of these pieces that you want the parent to have the same axis. So if I've got the cube up here, for example, I can click that button, and then now my null at the top is centered to the object I had selected when I used that tool. So I clicked on the cube, I hit center parent 2, not center to parent, that's opposite. Center parent 2, it centers up the master. See, now I can click on the null at the top, and I can rotate it, and it rotates with that center that I wanted in the first place. Next up is the connect and delete. When I'm building a bunch of stuff and I've got it all mixed down to geometry here, let's say I build this and I decide that I want this to be one piece of geometry. I can just click on all of these and say connect and delete, and it turns it into one big piece of geometry. The other way I use that a lot is if I'm doing something with splines, for example. If I've got a rectangle and a circle together, and I'll make the circle a little bit smaller like this. So I've got a rectangle, circle. I'm going to hit C and turn those into actual splines. But they're two objects. So let's say, you know, I wanted to extrude them or something. If I put those together with a hierarchy, this is what I would get. I'll delete that other one. This is what I would get because it's extruding both of those individually. So if you've got both of these, you connect objects and delete, and then you put it under an extrude, that works a lot better. Plus, this is just one object now, so you can update that and change it and move it around any way you want. Transfer. Transfer is one that I use a lot as well. Now, here's how that works. Let's say my cube is in the center. My scale is at 111, and I'm going to do a sphere, and it's over here, and I want to put it right where that is. I can hit the transfer button, and then I can just mouse over the cube and pop it in there. Now I'll put it back for a second and show you the options. You've got the option to just move it, to just scale it, to rotate it, or to do all of them together. So for example, if I wanted to line up everything perfectly, we'll do this the opposite way. I'll take the cube, and before I do anything, I'm going to throw it all off. I'm going to change this. I'm going to go to the scale, not the size, to the difference, to the scale. Change the scale, okay? So this is what I got now, and I want to transfer that over there. Everything. I want the size of it. I want the rotation. I want everything to be back to normal, just like the sphere is, and be in that center position where the sphere is. So I'll use the transfer button, and then I'll go like that. Pops it right into place. It's put the scale back to 111. It's put the rotation, everything where it needs to go. So if you got something that's a placeholder, you want to transfer something to it, that works really well. If you have a really big scene and you need to move something even to the general area of where something else is, rather than like going back to your different views and going to the top and moving it over there, it's a lot faster to just pop it in there real quick. Now, if you're doing something like that, you probably wouldn't change the rotation or the scale. You would just change the position. So, for example, if over here I had a big city scene going on and I had a bunch of cubes, and my sphere that I was working on is way over there, and I want to move it over here in this general area, but I don't want to change the size of the sphere. I don't want to change the rotation. I go to my transfer, I make sure I turn off scale and rotation, and I just pop it in right there. And see, it stays the right size and the right orientation, because if I didn't do that and I changed scale, it would get real big. Of course, I didn't have something that was off in scale to show you that with. See, I'll go like this. Rotate this and make it all wonky. Now, if I go to transfer my sphere over here, and everything's on, it's gonna take on those properties. I don't want that. I just want to move the sphere to that general region, and I'll say don't scale or rotate. Boom, there it is. Now it's over here, and I can just go work with it and put it where it needs to go. Lastly, instances. I'll probably talk about this a little bit later on this month, because I'm going to talk about how when you're working with large scenes, you really need to make sure you're using a lot of instances in order to help you with your viewport and with calculations and stuff. So I'm going to do a cube in the center. I'm going to do 4 of them. And I'm going to take these and turn them into regular geometry. And I'm going to go to my project info and tell it to calculate children. And we're going to look, we're going to look at how many polygons that we have in this scene. We have 24 polygons in this scene, right? Now let's do that again. And we're going to start with a cube. But this time we're going to make an instance of that cube, and we're going to duplicate that so that we've got 1 master cube and 3 iterations of that, and each one is set up as an instance of the cube. Now, if I go back to my project info, notice that there are 6 polygons in this scene. That's really going to help you as far as navigating around, because the computer thinks there's only 1 of these. It's just using that as a reference for the other one. And when you get into a super large scene and you've been doing that the whole time, you'll have an exponentially smaller scale, especially if you have something with a bunch of the same item in it over and over again. And of course, just the basic extrude. I don't even have to show you what that is. You probably know what that is. If not, go look that up. Basic extrude I have up here because I use that all the time. So that is it. Those are my favorite tools. I'm Dave Koss. I hope you enjoyed watching this Brograph tutorial. Please subscribe to us on YouTube. You'll get all of the latest videos when they come out. We're also on Vimeo now, which is awesome. We've had a lot of great response from that. Just about everything is up on Vimeo now, except for, I don't know, a small handful of tutorials, and all of our new stuff is going up there. Join us in the Cinema 4D subreddit. We're in there all the time, and Facebook. Like us on Facebook and Twitter. All of our stuff is on there as well. So we like to make it easy for you to get our stuff where you want it, when you want it. You can also sign up for the newsletter, which we put out very rarely, maybe quarterly, if that. So we won't bug you too much. Until next time, I'm Dave Koss. Thanks for watching. Later, bros. It's pretty good, I guess.